The first bill on the calendar for today is Senate File 2370. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 2370, number 6 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to cannabis.
Before the author explains the bill, we have an amendment at the desk to insert the House language into Senate File 2370. The clerk will report the amendment.
Stevenson moves to amend Senate File number 2370, the second engrossment as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert the following language of House File number 1615, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 1615.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. There are amendments at the desk. If there's no objection, we will let the author explain the bill before we act on the amendments. I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Stevenson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is the Omnibus Cannabis Policy Bill. The bill has a lot of technical adjustments to the cannabis program and licensing regime. It contains some provisions that tweak the medical program. It creates a new license for low-dose hemp wholesalers. Largely, it is a technical and unexciting bill, but a lot of members pitched in to make it happen, including Representatives Ryer, Representative Hewitt, Representative West, and I know I'm forgetting other people, but I'm sure we'll have a good discussion about it as we go forward.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
West moves to amend Senate File number 2370, second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A1.
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative West, who will explain the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Stevenson, for bringing this wonderful bill to the floor. This amendment gets the bill in the shape that we can agree on to take into conference. It allows medical combination businesses to sell to other cannabis businesses, deliver medical cannabis to medical patients, and transport as if they had a transporter license. It also, working with OCM to come up with a workable export policy, allows hemp manufacturers who are licensed to produce non-compliant products by Minnesota OCM standards as long as they are labeled for not for sale in Minnesota and are used to sell into other jurisdictions where those products are indeed in compliance with those regulations. And it also requires those products to be tested and labeled. This also eliminates a change that was made in the Commerce Committee that reduced the requirement of ownership for a social equity applicant from 65 to 51%. That change was made so that social equity applicants could generate the necessary capital to actually start a business and participate in the market. There was some consternation in that, so in the spirit of good faith, that is coming out in this amendment. But members, so we can get this bill in a way that it can pass off the floor and into conference, I would urge your support of the A1 amendment.
There is an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment to the amendment.
Robbins moves to amend the West Amendment to Senate File number 2370, second engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A6.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins, who will explain the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This amendment just builds on work we did last session to limit advertising of cannabis in different ways. And this particular amendment would limit the advertising of consuming cannabis and alcohol at the same time in different advertising platforms. So I encourage a green vote. Thank you.
Discussion to the amendment to the amendment. I recognize Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Robbins, for this amendment. I haven't had a chance to connect with you since you offered it. I think that I would recommend members accept the amendment for today. I think there might be some more discussion and work to be done on this issue in conference, but to take the issue to conference, I would encourage members to vote yes today.
Any further discussion to the amendment to the amendment? Representative Robbins?
Thank you, members. Vote green.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the amendment to the amendment is adopted. To the underlying amendment, further discussion. I recognize Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and just wanted to rise and thank Representative West for his great work on this bill and this amendment and encourage a yes vote.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Representative West. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 2370, as amended.
Third reading. Further discussion to the bill. I recognize the member from Beltrami, Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill, and I'll tell you the reasons why. This marijuana and medical purposes is completely on two ends of the spectrum here. So being in law enforcement and having this marijuana being used for medical purposes has been very, very difficult for me because marijuana is still a Schedule I drug. And if for those of you who don't know what a Schedule I drug is there is no therapeutic value to the drug whatsoever. Please, I would like you guys to Google that right now, a Schedule I drug. So in order for us to be able to maintain I guess, the credibility of, I guess, Minnesota legislation, I believe that we need to think very, very, very hard about making any kind of improvements to medical marijuana because there is no therapeutic value at all for it. So when we look at marijuana and what it's doing to our children, what it's doing to our community here, we need to be very, very careful on what we do. So we, in the state of Minnesota, make legislation, hopefully, that is going to benefit us, not rip us down. So marijuana is not going to benefit our community. It's just not. Medical purposes, marijuana, if there was an opportunity for us to be able to have this, getting off a Schedule I drug, we would have had it by last president, President Biden. That would have been our best case to get it off Schedule I. But the lawyers in here should know that. Please, make good legislation for the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Further discussion to the bill? I recognize a member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and thank you to Chair Stevenson and Chair West for working on this bill. I know that everyone's working in good faith to continue to make improvements in the cannabis law. I just wanted to speak briefly on third reading to an amendment that I didn't offer, but I want to make sure is part of the discussion going forward. I had several people, maybe half dozen people, send me pictures during the Easter season of THC beverages in open coolers in grocery stores next to Easter baskets and Easter candy and all the things, bubbles and chalk and things for kids in the seasonal aisle. And parents had reached out, other constituents had reached out, and they were very concerned that this was practice when the intent that anything, the food or beverages derived from hemp would have been supposedly securely stored, and you had to get help from a clerk or help from someone to access it. But clearly that wasn't going on this Easter season. So I had an amendment that I had drafted that would have required that the lower potency hemp edibles beverages be treated just like the edibles, and that they would have to be securely stored and behind a counter or in a locked cabinet. And I withdrew the amendment because, for two reasons. First, I want to give the industry the chance to fix this. So I want to talk about it publicly and encourage them that as we go through the coming holidays of Memorial Day, 4th of July, back to school, Halloween, whenever they want to be displaying THC beverages in an unsecure storage container, that they think twice about putting it near places where they're also displaying items for kids. But secondly, I also didn't want to upend the good work that the chairs have worked on to get us to this point in their bill. But members, this is an ongoing issue. I've heard many concerns about it. I have talked with the grocers, I've talked with the liquor stores and the retailers, so they're very well aware of this, but I want all of us to be mindful of it, and I just want to put them on notice that if this doesn't improve, I will bring the amendment forward in a future bill. Thank you.
Further discussion to the bill? I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House File 1615 as amended is not a bad bill at all. Does a lot of good, in particular, as we've seen with the cannabis rollout. It hasn't gone particularly smoothly. We followed a lot of states down a path that is leading to delays and things not getting started. However, well, today, the department announced June 5th, finally going to have the lottery. We're so very close to something happening there. But this bill contains some provisions that are important for ensuring a smooth rollout. Chief among them, now, this is not even that big a deal, but it's going to make a difference for, if you've heard anybody try and work with the city on this, is makes it clear that the pre-approval lottery and all the pre-approval language is now preliminary. This just makes sense because the pre-approval lottery is the lottery that got canceled, and a lot of cities are confused on what actually qualifies as an approval from the department when it comes to making sure they're compliant with zoning and other things. Also, it concludes a wholesaler fix that Chair Stevenson and I worked on thoroughly to ensure that the wholesalers who are operating in the THC hemp beverage space can continue to operate within a new regulatory framework. This is important because that's become a sizable part of their businesses, and the goal here, we want to allow people to continue doing what they're doing. And to that end, the bill also increases the non-intoxicating cannabinoid limits for hemp products. And this is important because many hemp products are above the limits that are currently set in law, and when you legalize something, it doesn't make a lot of sense to suddenly make a lot of other products illegal, especially the non-intoxicating varieties. So this increases the limits on those, which is a significant improvement for our hemp businesses around the state. And just one last provision I want to touch on is the testing variance language. The biggest benefit of legalizing cannabis in a state is that you have products tested so that when people are consuming, they are consuming something far safer than something they would buy from Chet, the drug dealer down the alley. And one of the problems that we're seeing is it takes a while to get accredited, a lab to be accredited so that they can qualify to test this stuff. But we generally know how to do it. So while that process is going on, they're going to be able to participate and test products for the market so that we can ensure whenever it does start going that there is tested product available that's safe for consumers to buy. I appreciate Representative Stevenson working with me to put together a pretty solid bill. And there are some issues outstanding that we will work on with conference. And hopefully the Senate will see the wisdom of the House and adopt many of our provisions. And we have other aspects that are just a lot of refining of the language in here, among other things that need to be sorted out within conference. And I'm confident that we'll be able to come back with an even better bill that I can encourage members to support the conference report and not just support moving this bill off today. But members, I would urge a green vote on this bill so that we can have a strong House position and teach the senators a thing or two about making good law.
I recognize the author of the bill, Representative Stevenson.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative West, for your work on this bill. I think we've gotten to a very good place. We have a little more work in front of us with the other body, but I'd ask for a green vote today and thank everybody.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 82 ayes and 50 nays, the bill as amended is passed.